Before we get started, I've got a question for you. Raise your hand. Do you consider yourself to be a digital marketing revolutionist? Raise your hand. Okay, the rest of you will be 60 minutes from now. You're going to understand why you need to embrace digital marketing, and you're going to have some high-level thinking from some of the world's most prominent, sought-after thought leaders on digital marketing. The first one, and we are extremely fortunate, extremely underlined in bold, to have Mr. Brian Solis. He lives in Redwood City, but Brian essentially lives in an airport. He travels the world for the Altimeter Group, talking about how consumer behavior has changed in the last 20, 30 years as a result of digital, software, hardware, everything. And he just published a book. He's got a short 15 minutes to give you some very high-level thoughts, but I would encourage you to meet with him after our session is done, buy his book, follow him along with his several 100,000 followers. And Brian, can you please join me on stage? Let's give it up for Brian.
Well, nothing says innovation and the future of marketing like PowerPoint. And so I am going to try my best to stick to 15 minutes, but I think that's nearly impossible. But it's ironic. I have a book out on experience design because, as you heard in the last panel, the future is really about experience, whether it's VR, AR, mobile, what have you. All of these new technologies are introducing us to new opportunities to design experiences. The irony is not lost on me that I wrote a book about experience design. Because, after all, why should I change what I'm doing? You should change what you're doing. Just kidding. I spent 3.5 years studying how digital has affected us as human beings, looking at kids, looking at teenagers, looking at young adults. I looked at their relationships with their screens. I studied attention spans, which is mind-blowing, how short it is. I studied sentence structure, I studied visual design, and I reverse engineered all of those aspects and applied it to paper. Because I thought, if I'm going to ask you to rethink what an experience should be in 2016 and 2017 and beyond, then maybe I should start with reimagining what an experience around a book could be. And it turns out that it's quite fascinating. The idea of the table of contents, the idea of chapters, the idea of paragraphs are all things that could be disrupted once you start questioning possibilities. Because I would argue, living here in Silicon Valley my whole career, I have seen a technology-first approach to almost everything. Every aspect of innovation, every new platform, even with VR, in some of the cases I'm seeing, I'm watching more iteration than I am innovation. Let's just bring a live experience to your face. Fantastic. How about what else could we do? If you think about that, though, it's because we apply our legacy-based thinking and philosophies, our standards, our measurements, our processes based on how we know the world and how we see the world. When I think about the possibilities for design, I think about what an experience means. When I reimagined what a book was, it was literally what is an experience and what could it be? An experience is an emotional reaction to a moment, and it requires design. Otherwise, it's just left to chance. People want to buy experiences. They don't want to buy products, right? We don't necessarily, I saw everybody having their Google Cardboard out. I don't necessarily have to put a phone to my face to just bring technology to life in a new way. I need it to be a better experience than I would have with my own eyes. Otherwise, we are just settling, becoming complacent to the world we know, rather than designing a new possible world. So if you think about the idea of brand, right? Every one of you, whether you're a marketer, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're an executive at a big company, experience what you design, the products that you create. Somebody in a previous panel said technology should be invisible. That's just the beginning. There should be something amazing that happens. We always talk about the same brands over and over. So what is it about those brands that are amazing? It comes down to experience design. Every single one of those companies are masters of experience architecture. We don't even talk about technology. We talk about capabilities. We imagine an experience. We imagine what it's supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to look like. Someone asked about smell earlier, which is the most powerful trigger of experiences. All of these aspects are then communicated in the design of the product, the marketing of the product, the support of the product, and most of the companies that we work with today are designed based on models of the 1960s and 1970s. If you want to talk about experience design, if you want to talk about an innovation, then start with the blank slate. Because there is what we say we do or what we promise, right? If you look at a lot of technology ads today, they promise some really great things. And then when you open the box, or if you talk to a sales rep, or if you talk to somebody in customer support, the experience starts to completely unravel because those all add up to the experience. It's not just about your technology, it's about how you sell it and how you support it, how you talk about it. Because an experience is something that is felt, it's sensed, and more importantly, it's measured in how it's shared. If an experience wasn't shared, it didn't happen, right? I watch each of you as you look at your phones or as you take pictures of these slides, and these slides are intentionally designed to be photographed. Because, I don't know, there's, 300 people in this room? The experience matters if it's shared to the thousands of people you're connected to. And I have to think about that experience to talk to you and talk through you in the 15 minutes I have. Before you even touch code, before you even develop hardware, you should ask yourself, what is an important experience? Not just to you, but to someone who is nothing like you, because that is what's happening today. Markets are spinning so far away from what we call standard, for what we call our comfort zone, that now's the time for innovation in everything. What was it about your favorite experience that you remember, that defined who you are, that inspired you to do something differently? Because those are the hooks that you have to design in your app, in your device, and then all of the marketing and support and services that continue that feeling. A lot of us have talked about Uber here, for better or for worse. It is your competitor, even if you're not in the transportation business. Because what Uber has done is it's created the standard for a new type of experience. It brings a car to you through an app that makes payments invisible that you can track the car, the ride. They have an API so that you can design your own personal experiences once you get inside the car. That is becoming the standard. To the point where the more connected we become as individuals, the more empowered we are, the more informed we are, the more demanding we are. I've studied how long is too long to wait for an Uber before you want to hit cancel. Do you know that in certain places, specifically in San Francisco, things like 7 or 8 minutes is too long, right? What happened when that became too long, right? You have a car coming to you that you can track, that you hit with an app, and you're complaining about how long it's taking. But that's the new standard for experience. David Foster Wallace is a famous novelist and someone that I highly admire, and he wrote this commencement speech called "This is Water." And the point of his commencement speech was that when we think about whatever it is that we want to do in life, we tend to let our everyday surrounding guide our next steps. We don't challenge it. We operate within it. This is Water tells the story of two fish who are swimming in a fishbowl, and another fish passes by and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the two fish look at each other, "Water? What's water?" Because they're used to their environment and not challenging it. Except the people that you're designing for, the people that you're marketing to, are so connected and empowered and informed that they consciously decide what has meaning and what doesn't in real time, which is making it next to impossible to win the hearts and minds of people the way we used to do it. And that's because they have the power of the choice and they exercise it. Because society, when you look at it, if you challenge the concept of this is water, you realize that your whole design landscape your whole canvas can be blank and should be blank. Because this is who you're designing for. This is an art series where the photographer removes the phone from everyday scenarios. When you look at the phone in your hand, it's like, I do that every single night. When you look at it this way, like, wow, I do that every single night. I call the new market landscape the ecosystem, because every device, every app you use, every social network you use reminds you that you are the center of your universe. Each of you are going to share a selfie or a picture of somebody from this event today, and you're going to check how many likes it got. And if you don't get enough likes, you are actually going to feel less about yourself for a minute. And that's the power of the ecosystem. You're designing for people to feel and sense things differently. And the challenge that we have is we see the world the way it was. Even in something as outlandish as this picture, the one thing we all see is the old lady in the front. And you talk to executives and they'll say, oh, look at those people. Put your phones down. Be in the moment. Live life, right? Like this sweet woman here in the front. Gosh, she's in that moment. She's experiencing it. But it's a shift in perspective, right? If you think about the importance of experience for someone who is not you, you start to design differently. So change the game. Look at that selfish woman there in the front, not sharing this moment with all her Facebook friends that couldn't be there. So selfish. We are designing for people who live this balance of digital and physical all the time. And it's easy for us to look at this picture, and our first instinct as executives, as designers, as marketers, is to say, yeah, I can't help but judge this picture, right? But how many of you have been to a dinner where everybody was doing just this, right? Okay, how many of you took the picture of everyone doing that? Which is so ironic, right? So you're designing these worlds now, these products, these devices, these marketing aspects that cater to this physical and digital world where everybody is accidentally narcissistic. This is a real sidewalk in China. By the way, just a little tip, for those who actually text and walk, you're not walking as fast as you think you are. If Maslow could reimagine the hierarchy of needs, it might look like this. This is all real pain. Or this. This is my favorite cover of Wired. For those who don't understand this, I'm not going to explain it to you. But the idea of something like this is down to 2 emojis is amazing. Where was this when I was a kid? Seriously. But I want you to think about accidental narcissism and the ecosystem. This is where experience design really starts to come to life. We are all, every time you pick up your phone, you are reprogramming your brain to expect things differently, right? If you look at your phone 1,500 times a week, that adds up to about 177 minutes per day. And if you think about your interaction with your device, you are teaching yourself to be more impatient. You want things quicker. You start hacking things differently. You start communicating differently. This is the aspect of which blank slates have to be designed upon. Otherwise, we make assumptions based on legacy that automatically starts from an outdated or old experience. I saw this fantastic video on YouTube that showed a 1-year-old baby playing with an iPad. It was natural. Her dad thought it would be funny if he gave her a magazine. Doesn't work. Starts crying. Her father says, Steve Jobs has forever recoded my daughter's brain. To her, a magazine is an iPad that doesn't work, and it will be that way for the rest of her life. And my mind was blown because that's exactly where we get into trouble. We start to design based on the world we know, not the way the world is seeing the world. There's an old philosophical quote, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. She's going to have to learn what a magazine is, just like we had to learn what an iPad is. And so we bring this analog-based perspective in design, and it results in something like this. What the hell happened? How are we okay with this? I studied this, by the way, and made an infographic. Going back to the 1950s, they've gotten worse every generation. Because what happens is we take all this new stuff and throw it into a foundation that exists because we never decided to challenge the foundation. Right? So now, on average, a remote control today has 70 buttons on it. That's ridiculous. And so it's time to start questioning design principles, because what's happening is when you start to design on top of what you know, you get something that looks like this. Right? This is a parking sign. I want you to think about the experience in having to read this. Right? You're probably blocking traffic, trying to frantically determine whether or not you can park here. The City of New York says, okay, we get it. We're going to innovate our parking signs. And they open it up to creative agencies everywhere to reimagine the parking sign. So this is what we got. A parking sign. It's a little bit cleaner, right? But it's the remote control problem. It's iteration versus innovation. They designed based on how they saw the parking sign and just optimized it. That's what's happening right now with virtual reality and augmented reality. We're building upon this stuff that we know, not imagining new possibilities. So what if you saw the world through the eyes of an accidental narcissist? How would you design? Maybe it looks completely different. Maybe it visually connects with you in ways that you didn't imagine before, simply because you allowed yourself to step outside of what you see and how you see it. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to share with you just a few last thoughts. Your aspirations are limited only by those from who we allow ourselves to be measured and validated. That is what's holding us back, because we allow previous legacy-based metrics and aspirations to hold back our true possibilities. Because when you make technology invisible, you create experiences that are unimaginable, but then come to life. That is what this is about. It's about human connection, human engagement, human-centered design. This is your canvas. It's blank. This is where you start. Anything different than this, you are risking iteration rather than innovation. This is space. Like this is water, this is space. And this is yours to design. If you have a moment, take a look at X, the book. It really talks about the aspects of experience architecture. But in the end, what you imagine and what I imagine can't be held to yesterday's standards. They have to innovate to unlock new possibilities that create the kinds of experiences that people want to have and share. Thank you very much.